You think you're free, don't you? You make your own choices, chase your own dreams, live by your own rules. But tell me this, when was the last time you wanted something that wasn't planted in you by someone else? Think about it. The clothes you wear, the phone in your pocket, the way you define success, none of it came from nowhere. It came from a system that's been whispering in your ear since you were a child, convincing you that freedom means getting to choose your flavor of cage. You can pick the career, the city, the car, the partner. You can even reinvent yourself online. But underneath it all, there's a quiet truth no one wants to face. Most of your desires are not yours. We were told that freedom is the ability to choose, but choice, in the modern world, has become a trap. Because when you can have anything, you lose the ability to value anything. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus warned 2,000 years ago, "Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it." Yet we live in the opposite age, an empire of indulgence where the market has learned how to turn your attention, your longing, and even your boredom into currency. Freedom used to mean autonomy, the capacity to govern yourself. Now it means access, the capacity to consume. And here's the paradox. The more options you have, the less control you actually feel. You open Netflix and scroll for 20 minutes, unable to decide. You have 1,000 career paths, and somehow you feel lost. You're drowning in choice, not because you're free, but because your attention has been sold. Desire wasn't always something to celebrate. In ancient philosophy, it was something to master. Plato believed that human longing was like a chariot pulled by two horses, one noble, one wild, and that wisdom was learning how to steer them. Desire was energy, creative, powerful, divine, but dangerous if left ungoverned. But somewhere along the way, the wild horse took control. The modern world realized that desire could be engineered. In the early 20th century, a man named Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud, discovered that if you understood the unconscious, you could manipulate it. He used Freud's ideas about repressed emotion to create modern advertising, not by selling products, but by selling identities. He made women believe cigarettes were a symbol of independence. He made men believe cars were proof of masculinity. And within a few decades, entire societies were convinced that happiness could be bought. One purchase, one click, one upgrade at a time. What used to be the whisper of temptation became the language of the world. Today, we confuse autonomy with abundance. We think that because we can choose, we are free. But choice without direction isn't freedom. It's chaos. The psychologist Erich Fromm called this the escape from freedom. He noticed that after the rise of individualism, people didn't know what to do with their new independence, so they turned to conformity, to the safety of trends, ideologies, and social approval. And the tragedy is that we still call it self-expression. You can dye your hair blue, post your opinions, or build a personal brand, and still be completely owned by the system that taught you to seek validation in the first place. Our generation didn't escape control, we just made it fashionable. If you look around, everything sacred has been converted into a transaction. Your data is a commodity. Your attention is a battlefield. Your emotions are metrics for algorithms designed to predict your next move. We used to sell labor. Now we sell identity. And the price? The quiet erosion of meaning. Plato's cave isn't made of stone anymore. It's digital. Shadows flicker on your screen, lifestyles, influencers, ideologies, and you take them for reality. You chase the glow because it feels like light. But the truth is, you're chained to the wall by your own desires. We tell ourselves we're building a life when what we're really building is a profile, something polished enough to impress, but hollow enough to disappear the moment no one's watching. Have you ever noticed how wanting something feels almost like pain? It's a kind of ache, a tension between where you are and where you think you should be. Desire promises pleasure, but it thrives on dissatisfaction. The second you get what you want, it loses its power. So your mind creates a new target. You don't want peace, you want the chase. Buddhism understood this long before neuroscience did. The Buddha taught that desire, tanha, is the root of suffering, not because wanting is evil, but because it never ends. Every time you attach your happiness to a future condition, you postpone peace. And so the system doesn't have to chain you. It just has to keep you wanting. We don't crave because we're greedy, we crave because we're afraid. Afraid of insignificance, of stillness, of the unbearable silence that creeps in when there's nothing left to chase. The philosopher Blaise Pascal once wrote, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." He said this centuries before smartphones, before algorithms, before the endless feed, yet he saw it coming. Our addiction to stimulation isn't about entertainment. It's about distraction from the truth that most of us have no idea who we are when there's nothing to want. Desire is a mask we wear to avoid confronting the void. And freedom, real freedom, is what's left when you take the mask off. So what does it mean to be truly free? To the Stoics, freedom was inner sovereignty, the ability to remain undisturbed by what you cannot control. To the Taoists, it was harmony, moving with the flow of life instead of fighting it. To Nietzsche, it was self-overcoming, the courage to shape your own values rather than inherit them. All of them, in their own way, said the same thing. Freedom isn't the ability to do whatever you want. It's the ability to stop being enslaved by what you want. Imagine if your happiness no longer depended on what you could acquire or achieve. If your sense of worth wasn't held hostage by comparison or craving. If you could look at every desire, every urge to consume, prove, or win, and simply not obey it. That is freedom. Not the freedom of the marketplace, but the freedom of the mind. Here's the paradox. The less you need, the more powerful you become. When you stop chasing validation, people lose control over you. When you stop craving comfort, the world can't threaten you. When you stop demanding more, what you already have starts to feel infinite. This is why sages and philosophers across time, from Socrates to Diogenes, from Seneca to the Buddha, all preached simplicity. Not because they hated pleasure, but because they understood that pleasure without awareness becomes a prison. Diogenes, the mad philosopher who lived in a barrel, once told Alexander the Great, "Step aside. You're blocking my son." The most powerful man in the world stood before him, and he had nothing to take from him. That's freedom. You don't need to renounce the world or move to a mountain to find it. You just need to start asking, why do I want this? Every time you feel that pull, to buy something, to prove something, to be someone, pause and ask where it comes from. Is it a genuine calling of the soul, or a script you've been handed? Slowly, you'll start to see the pattern, how your thoughts aren't entirely yours, how your cravings echo the world's expectations, how the system feeds on your insecurity. Awareness is the beginning of liberation. Once you see the strings, you stop being the puppet. You were born free, not because you could choose, but because you could be. Before the noise, before the marketing, before the world taught you what to want, there was a version of you that simply existed. Curious, open, alive. That's the self you've been trying to return to. Not the one that wants, but the one that sees. The system thrives on one belief, that you are incomplete. But the moment you realize you are enough as you are, the illusion collapses. The marketplace loses its power, because the freest person in the world isn't the one who has everything. It's the one who no longer needs anything.